Hey guys, Trevor Holt here. Just another episode of the Who Are We podcast. I have a special guest with me, Gerald. How are you today?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. How are you?
Good, thanks. Thanks for joining us today. Just before we get going, just a little bit of a disclosure. We're recording this session. We might post it on YouTube and put some promotional links on LinkedIn or whatever. But basically, we're just trying to get people just aware of different other people and the normality of talking about who we are and what we do, and I suppose just getting that sort of people comfortable about talking about themselves, I suppose, to create better outcomes in society, and maybe even exploring other people to investigate who they are. So that's what this is all about. So thank you for joining us today, Gerald. So we'll get straight into it. Who is Gerald and what does he stand for?
Yeah, my name is Gerald Harcourt Burridge. I have developed an in-home program. It's free of charge for people that want to speak confidently in any language. And this is the result of something that I started about 23 years ago. I was an English speaker living in Canada, and I wanted to speak French, so I went to a French-speaking province, Quebec, in Canada, and I went to Quebec City, which is about 95% French speaking. This is the capital city of the province, and I didn't really know anything about acquiring a second language. I just thought, like most people, that, how hard could it be? So I just went in and I just went to the city just to see how everything would go, and there were a lot of surprises, I can tell you. I was stunned, actually, at with the experience. And my first year was very, very difficult. I was in French school, and I was expecting to be able to speak French in months, and after about a year, I realized that I wasn't getting anywhere. I just simply couldn't speak French. I was learning all the French grammar and vocabulary, but nothing was happening. In the second year, I had the same result, and I was actually slipping into a bit of a depression, because I thought I wasn't intelligent enough to speak the language. I was asking myself questions like, maybe language is not for me. So I needed to work. So, you have to speak French in Quebec City in order to get a job. So the only work that I could actually do was being an English teacher. So I started doing that. And that was actually very easy work, because when you're an English teacher, all you have to do is teach grammar and vocabulary, and your students write exams, and generally, if they get good marks, everyone pats you on the back and tells you what a great job you did. After about 3 or 4 years of doing this, though, some red flags started to appear in my mind regarding what I was doing for a living. Because my students, while they were getting fantastic exam marks, they were not speaking English, which was what they wanted to do. That was the only thing they wanted to do. They didn't care about the written grammar exam marks. They just wanted to speak English so they could get a job, because basically in French-speaking Canada, you can go to university, you can get a PhD, you can discover all kinds of things, but if you can't actually speak English here in Canada, people just ignore you. You don't get any recognition for any of the work that you do, and this is a very big problem for French speakers in Canada. So I thought to myself that I thought, well, I need to fix this problem. Now, that's not an easy thing to do, because, of course, you have large university institutions in the world that are running second language programs, and their idea of doing that is a learning approach in a classroom, which actually, for most people, sounds pretty reasonable. But of course, it's only reasonable as long as students are actually speaking a language at a high level in the classroom. And this, I found this out right away. So I thought, okay, I have to become educated in what I'm doing here. So I went back to school at Laval University, and I was in a linguistics program. My first year was I was in a second language education program, just to see what they were teaching teachers, at university, how to become teachers in second language. And this was a very, very interesting experience. Basically, I knew that what I was doing as an English teacher was wrong, because my students were experiencing high anxiety in the classroom and panic attacks when they were speaking outside, when they were trying to speak English outside the classroom. And the result phase of my teaching was that while kids were coming to my class, because I was a very dynamic teacher, and basically my attitude was, you can say anything you want in my classroom and I'm never going to criticize you. That worked out very well in the classroom, but outside the classroom, I couldn't protect them from all of the severe judgment that our society imposes. And people don't actually think about this when they're speaking in their native language. We take speaking for granted, like most people. And we don't think about this kind of thing until you start speaking a second language, and then you become very aware of the judgment. And of course, the same thing was happening to me whenever I tried to speak French. People were looking at me like, you don't know anything about French. It was quite disconcerting, to say the least. So basically, I started doing this research, and for about the first 5 years, I found out a lot of things about second language. Like, for example, at university, you can look at all of the studies that have been done about this, and of course, most of these are not available to the public. They're buried in university vaults, and this is exactly the way the second language industry wants it, because as I discovered, I knew something was wrong, and I knew that I was right, that something was wrong. So I looked at some of these studies, and some of these studies were saying that 90% of kids that start language programs drop the programs. I was looking at all of these studies they were doing on immigrants that were coming to North America. They knew they had to speak English. They would go into a program, and after 6 months, they would drop the program. And I thought, well, that's really odd, because they have to speak English. So why would they drop the program? And then I started to learn about all of this high anxiety and panic attacks that people suffer. And this was a very eye-opening experience. So right away, I thought, okay, I'm on the right track here. I know something's wrong. That confirmed all of my suspicions about what was happening with my students. So I thought, okay, well, I can't just complain about this. I have to actually find a way to fix this problem, something that I can offer people that will help them speak.
Yeah.
So now this was a very torturous journey, because the problem that I had was I was under the impression that university institutions would never do anything that would hurt the future potential of students. Now, when you're under that impression, it's very difficult to find a solution. And suddenly one day I realized that, you know what, these people are not interested in doing that at all. Okay, they're interested in making money.
Yeah,
which is fine. And I'm a capitalist, and I have nothing against that. The biggest, so this is kind of an inner conflict that I had. Well, they're making money, and then I thought, well, yeah, but in order to make money, you have to offer people something that is good for them. You can't deceive people. You can't be a snake oil salesman, basically, right? I mean, that's not working. And this is when I found out that, yes, universities are what they're doing is they're deceiving people, basically. And now I should talk a little bit about this. The problem with second language education is they're trying to apply the same conditions as we use for native speakers. For example, we all go to school and we learn things. Now, generally, that's a pretty good outcome because what you need in that situation is you need all of the students in the classroom to be speaking at a reasonably high level. This is why, for example, children go to school at the age of 6, and the reason that they can do that is because they've had 5 years of speech training in the home where they tried to say all kinds of things. They made all kinds of errors, and nobody criticized them because they're small kids. All the parents were like, "Wow, that's really great," although they maybe didn't understand what the child was saying. So the child has had 5 years of all this kind of experimentation where he can actually use simple grammar tenses. He can understand what's happening. And that qualifies him to be in a simple learning environment at the age of 6 years old. Okay, so now the problem with second language students is they haven't had any of that speech training experience. So now we're putting them in a classroom and we're speaking to them in a language that they don't understand. Now that causes a lot of trauma. Okay,
and I've been reading too, just to elaborate on that too. Like as adults, your learning capacity, your cognitive capacity to learn new languages as adults actually decreases than what it was when you were a little. I'm not sure what science is in behind that.
That's an excellent point, Trevor. Basically, what happens is, for example, if you look at immersion programs for children. If you look at a 6-year-old, for example, that goes into like French immersion, for example, he's an native English speaker, he goes into French immersion, and you compare that with a student who has been in immersion since the age of 6, and now he's 14, okay? The 6-year-old speaks better, okay? The 6-year-old is very content to speak the second language. The 14-year-old is terrified to speak the second language, okay? And the reason for that is the 6-year-old does not have enough development in cognition to realize that he is being judged. He'll just say anything, he'll try everything, and most of it is pretty good. There are a few problems, but I mean, it's pretty good. But this is the problem with these immersion programs. People start when they're 6 years old, and as they grow older, their cognition increases. And that's what makes the language classroom and speaking outside the classroom terrifying, because they start realizing that people are judging them. And unfortunately, human beings have a nasty habit of criticizing people that don't speak the language very well, okay? I mean, we see this with immigrants all the time. People mock immigrants for the way that they speak English. This has been going on since the beginning of time.
And we spoke about this last week. That's a good point. We spoke about this a bit last time I was speaking to you. We were saying that people have the assumption, like, I only speak English, that's the only language I speak. But when someone's not speaking that fluent English like me, then there's a perception that their intelligence level is less than mine. I don't know where that comes from, but that's just, like you say, that's something that's being built into our culture, I suppose.
Well, the interesting thing that I found out when I was doing this research is that speaking levels dictate levels of intelligence in our society. And that's something that you don't realize until you start speaking a second language, okay? If you're not speaking at a high level, people just think you're just not educated, and you even think that yourself. And this is the biggest problem with students in second language. They think they're stupid. Okay, that's what they think. That's what I thought when I couldn't speak French. I thought, I'm just not smart enough to do this, okay? Now, that has some pretty serious mental health implications, okay? I mean, when you get down, because the biggest problem is these students come into a classroom and self-criticism is the worst, okay? They beat themselves up because they're looking at other students, and of course, the problem with a language classroom is that there are always 3 or 4 students in a second language classroom. Their parents speak the language. And of course, they're going to be speaking much better than the other students. Now, the problem with immersion programs, you see, parents have no idea what's happening to their kids in immersion programs. They just think it's education. They look at the grammar and exam marks, which are pretty acceptable, and they're going, wow, Johnny's doing really great. Everything's fine. what they don't know is that Johnny's in a classroom with other kids who maybe their parents are speaking the language with them. And now the problem is that kids live in their own society. And this is one thing that older people don't understand, is that, oh yeah, that's right. Like a lot, I've heard a lot of parents say, oh, they're just kids. They'll get over it. Whatever's happening in the classroom, they'll get over it. No, they won't. No, they won't. Okay. And, what you'll see, for example, when I was in Saudi Arabia, I used to say this to the Saudis. The Saudis used to say, look at these 3 or 4 kids, like they're presenting all this information to the other kids. And then I'd say to the Saudis, yeah, but the other 27 kids don't understand what they're saying, and they're not too happy about that, And this is the problem. Kids live in their own society, so you have the cool kids that run the classroom, and the teacher, of course, thinks that the cool kids are more intelligent because they're speaking the language. And the other kids look at that and they go, okay, I'm not as smart as these other kids. And of course, the kids that are running the classroom, the kids that speak better, they are the kings, and we live by their rules, basically. So they dish out a lot of criticism to the other kids, which is not good for them. Okay, that's a pretty terrible situation. Now, the problem is when kids are in immersion, they can't just leave the program. I mean, the parents are like, no, you have to stay in the program. Okay, yeah. I mean, don't worry, everything's going to be fine, because the parents don't know.
Yeah.
So basically what happened, the result phase of all of this immersion in Canada, and we spend about $2.4 billion on this every year.
Yeah.
When kids get to high school, when they can choose their programs, they immediately stop the program. Okay, they just because they've had 8 years of high anxiety and panic attacks, and I mean, anyone blame them for stopping the program? No. Now the parents, if you talk to parents, they all have an excuse for why their son or daughter dropped out. They say, oh yeah, their interest changed. Oh yeah, he's doing other things, but they don't know. They don't know about all this high anxiety, and I'm trying to educate parents now, and of course, I've talked to a lot of parents about this, and they just don't really understand what's happening. They go, oh, it's education, and yes, but it's the wrong kind of education.
I seen something when you talk. I seen something the other day actually on LinkedIn, and it was a picture of like a monkey, an elephant, a snake, crocodile or whatever, a heap of different animals, and then they say, oh, standardized testing, we're going to test you all the same. To be fair, we'll test you on who's the best at climbing the tree. And the poor, I don't know, something that couldn't climb trees is there, and the monkey's all happy because he's one of the...
Sure.
That's what it reminds me of. Yeah.
Now, so basically, of course, the biggest problem is that, for example, I say this to parents, I say, listen, your son or daughter is in an immersion program that, for example, if adults went into that program, they would quit the program in days, okay? Because one panic attack for an adult, and they're going to stop the program, okay? And people don't actually understand that these panic attacks are the most severe that human beings can experience. It's like a near-death experience, okay? In fact, some people actually say that the fear of death is number 2. Okay. Number 1 is, being rejected because you can't speak the language. That's the number 1 fear of human beings. So it's pretty severe. And I've suffered these panic attacks. And yes, when it happened, I was in a complete daze for the entire day. There was no learning going on. I had no idea what was going on around me. I was completely stunned, and it's a terrible experience for kids. And of course, in my experience as a second language teacher, because I was so dynamic, I had a lot of people asking me, can you I have a classroom for problem kids in my school. Can you come and help me? And for example, I would see kids shaking in my class on the first day, and I'd be like, whoa, what is going on? You got to fix that, So I had to explain to these kids, okay, you come in here, you try things, nobody's going to criticize you. And they were like, really? Oh, wow. This is cool, So that all worked out very well. But of course, for most kids, they'll just stop the program. That's the easiest thing to do. And they never go back, because why would you want to go back to that kind of social isolation, being pushed out of conversations? And I've seen this happen, and I've seen a lot of I've seen a lot of small children cry in class because their friends said, your French sucks, like, wow,
Yeah.
and if you want to start World War
losing their self-identity or losing who they are because they aren't able to associate in that culture or that room at that time. Yeah.
Listen, Trevor, if you want to start World War III with one of your friends, just tell him that you don't like the way he speaks English. That'll do it. Oh yeah. War will be on. Okay. Yes, absolutely. So, okay. So now we know the problem here. All right. So basically I thought, okay, I have to find a solution to this. Okay. So I mucked around with a lot of different things, and what I came up with was a camera training program in the home, because I realized that confident speakers have always been produced at home. They've never been produced at school. You want a nice, safe environment for your students, and the classroom is the most toxic environment we have ever invented in education in second language. It's a horrible place for kids to be, because they're going to get pushed around all the time, and this is terrible. So I decided, okay, so they're going to be in the home. And of course, the problem with education these days is we are monetizing it. We have to make money from it. Okay. Now, that works out pretty well for most native speakers who want to learn something. Okay. They want to learn how to be a plumber. Okay, sure. You go to plumbing school. No problem. That's cool. That works out great. But for second language, monetizing it. So back in the 60s, when this whole thing really kind of took off in second language education, they realized, wow, everybody has to speak English here, because we've got all these immigrants now coming to North America, Australia, England. So we're going to make a lot of money from this. But the problem is that they're trying to monetize something that can't be monetized. I mean, if you want a good result base. So they tried to put kids in a classroom, and now, of course, we realize that that's not working. Now, the biggest problem for anyone that wants to learn a second language is, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to school, so I should maybe look at all these schools and try and figure out the best school. Now, the problem for anybody that wants to learn a language is these schools are not actually being completely honest about what they're doing, okay? In fact, they don't actually really tell you what they're doing. They just say, pay us and come on into the classroom and you'll experience it. Now, that doesn't work out very well for anyone, okay? And of course, as I was talking to you last time, I said, listen, the language industry is the most secretive industry in the world. You can't find out anything about what anybody is doing. It's yeah. So for anybody that wants to do this, they're going in kind of blind, which is pretty terrible. And they're spending a lot of money doing it while they're doing this process. And basically what happens to most adults is they spend all this money, they buy all these apps, and they try all this stuff, and nothing happens. I'll give you an example of an app, like, for example, Rosetta Stone. Yeah. I've probably talked to between 500 and 1,000 users of Rosetta Stone, okay, for example. Now, this is supposed to be the, god of all apps, okay, when it comes to language acquisition. And frankly, I haven't had one person tell me that they speak better as a result. Okay.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Not one. In fact, I haven't had an adult tell me that they speak better as a result of any app that is available on the internet. So that's a bit of an eye opener. So basically I thought, okay, so we're in the home now. And so I thought, okay, so the best thing to do, I thought, you know what, I'd like to see myself speaking on camera now. This is I developed a camera training program. Now, the problem with the camera is that when you mention camera, of course, 99% of people in the world, are like, no, thank you. Okay. They do not want to be in front of a camera.
Yeah. I haven't got the face for it. I got that yesterday from someone said, you want to be on a podcast? No, I'm not built for that.
Sure. Yeah, of course. Now, so I thought, okay, they don't want to be on camera. Now, basically what I say to people is, look, if you're in the home by yourself and you're on camera, only you are going to see this. Okay. So you're not going to experience any judgment from anybody else. And I basically say, listen, And so I started mucking around with this. So I started doing it myself. And I found out a lot of things about being on camera. Just tried to give a presentation. The first thing I found out was, okay, I look pretty bad doing this. Okay. Yeah. that was a bit of an, because I thought, well, this is going to be really easy. I mean, I thought, okay, I'm just going to do it in English. Okay. And just see, and it was a train wreck. Okay. So I thought, okay, I need some tools to help me here. So I thought, well, I look at all these people on CNN and, Aussie News. Okay. They're all, presenting all this information easily. So I thought, they're using a teleprompter. So I started mucking around with a teleprompter, and I found out that there's a free teleprompter on the internet if you don't want to spend any money. It's called Q Prompter.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So yeah, in fact,
Later, and I was making a video actually.
Yeah, Q Prompter. But you know what? Everything that I offer in my program is free. You don't have to spend any money, which is really great. I mean, because these days families just don't have money for things like that. Okay, so.
And the other thing is too, with a lot of these immigrants, they come to the country for opportunity to earn money. Like I couldn't, I don't know, maybe I'm a bit deluded, but I always have the impression that people come to countries for better opportunities because they're not getting to what they want to be in their own country.
Very true.
Work and looking to make money, not spend it. I know there are probably exceptions to that. That's how I interpret it. Is that?
Look, these immigrants that come to English-speaking countries, most of them are very intelligent people. They've had a lot of experience in their own country, doing business or whatever. Like, for example, we have 20,000 immigrant doctors in this country that can't practice medicine because they can't speak English. That's pretty terrible. And we need doctors here in Canada. This program that I have is basically, I thought about immigrants first, okay? Because we're not integrating people into our society correctly. We're putting them in these classrooms that are toxic, and we're saying to them, okay, you're going to learn to speak the language, and they're like, wow, this is a nightmare for me. This is a personal disaster. So basically, I decided, okay, I've got a program in the home where we're going to use the camera. Now, basically, what I tried this with the camera, and I realized, wow, this is a pretty terrible experience. So I need tools. So I got a teleprompter, and I thought, okay, now that's helping me a lot.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, basically I decided, okay, the way I'm going to sell this is, because basically I thought, okay, if I'm going to tell people how to speak a second language, I should be doing it myself, because if not, I'm just a hypocrite, because this is what I noticed about all these language experts on the internet. They're all telling people how to speak English, and they're actually speaking in English during they're not presenting in a second language. Yeah. So I thought, okay, so I tried this speech training with Spanish, and I tried it for 4 months, and then I went to Colombia last year, and I was shocked at the result because I was actually speaking pretty well in Spanish. I can't speak about everything in Spanish, of course. I don't have that experience, but speaking to people about their problems, for example, I did 4 months of camera training, and I watched Colombian news every day. Yeah. And so I was well versed in what was happening in Colombia, and people were completely shocked. This was a fantastic experience. And for your ego, it's pretty good, because it must be one of the top 4 speaking languages, Spanish, isn't it? It's in the top 10. It's probably one of the most stable in the top 10 for sure. Like, for example, I'm in Canada. A lot of people here I'm in Montreal. A lot of people speak French here. And I was speaking French actually pretty well, doing this camera training too. But now I'm a little more concentrating on Spanish because French is sort of going down. It might slip out of the top 10, actually. People are speaking, in a lot of these French-speaking countries are speaking English now, whereas Spanish is very stable. So anyway, so basically, okay, so now it's interesting because this morning I just released a presentation in Spanish on my YouTube channel. Now, I've been speaking.
What's your YouTube channel? Just plug it. What is it? Sorry?
My channel?
Yeah, what's it? Yeah, give it a plug. What is it?
Yeah, it's called Camera Training Confident English Speaking is the name of it. Okay? Yeah. Now, basically, my presentations are available in English and Spanish. There are a couple of French presentations too for people that speak French, but I'm concentrating on Spanish now these days. But what is interesting is I've been speech training for just about a year now. Yeah. And last night I looked at the Spanish presentation, because basically when you do a presentation, on any presentation, whether it's English or Spanish, you do it, you edit it, you look at it again, you come back a couple of days later, you look at it again, because you're always saying, is it good enough? This is what artists do, like when they're putting stuff, this is the question they're always asking, And last night I had to admit to myself, because I'm very critical, I'm my worst critic, okay? I had to admit to myself that, I felt strongly last night that I looked at my comfort level during the presentation. I thought, you know what? I could be speaking my first language here, it really was. So basically this is why I'm doing this, because I want to test my own method, and I thought to myself, you know what? This thing is working, it's working really well. And actually the people in Colombia that are using this program that I know, they're experiencing very, very good results with this. Okay. And no high anxiety. This is a really cool part. Because we have to reduce the anxiety to zero. If not, people are just not going to continue in the program. So basically what's happening here is, yes, this camera training works because you're in your house by yourself and you look at it and you go, okay, I've made a whole bunch of mistakes here. And then you change those mistakes. So basically what happens in this program is every presentation that you do has a 7-day training period for about 1 hour each day. Okay. So basically what you do is, if you're an immigrant, you would write the text in your first language. Then you go to Google Translate or Chat GPT and you translate that into whatever language you want, English or French, for example. Yeah. And then you put that information on the teleprompter and you practice every day with the teleprompter. Now, every day after a couple of practice runs, you're going to turn on the camera on your computer and you're going to record yourself. So every day you're going to record yourself doing the presentation. And what you will notice, the first couple of days, there are a lot of errors, okay? Yeah. It's training. Oh, yeah. Okay. But you know what? If you do it in your native language, you'll find that too. Okay. Yeah. So, but on the third day, you'll go, wow. That third day you're like, wow, you're much more relaxed, everything seems like you're on track, and you're asking yourself,
when you say third day, though, it's only 1 hour a day, you said, is it? 1 hour,
That's right.
Yeah. 1 hour a day.
So on your third day, you're feeling, you go, wow, that was pretty smooth, and so you're asking yourself, now, why is that happening? And this is the problem. People don't actually understand what's happening. Now, basically, everybody thinks that, of course, if you don't understand something, it's your frontal cortex, this is where you do all your thinking and reasoning. That's the problem, yeah. But no, really has nothing to do with your frontal cortex, okay? Basically, you got 2 grammar processes in your head called Broca and Wernicke. One's responsible for speaking. The other one's responsible for listening ability and sound coordination. And you have to train these guys, okay? Now, what is interesting, what I found out about this whole language journey is that in order to be intelligent, everything has to go through here first, and then it goes here, okay? Now, that sounds, for most people, they go, no, I read something, you go, okay, and it's going to go in here, and then I'm going to think about it. Well, yes and no. You're going to think very superficially about this because, for example, in school, kids go to school, they read things, they study, and then they write exams. And then after that, they forget all this stuff. Okay. Yeah. Now, when you're on the job site, you can't exactly do that. Okay. Yeah. In order to become an expert, you have to solidify information. And the best way to do that is train these guys. Okay. So what you'll find is after a 7-day period of training, not only will you be able to comfortably speak about the information that you're doing, but you'll be able to apply it to problem solving and innovative thinking. Okay, now this is something that I discovered on my own. I thought, wow, that's a pretty amazing breakthrough in education, because for people on the job, for people that are in education that want good exam marks, and this is what I'm stressing now, I'm saying, listen, if kids want to get outstanding exam marks, speech train with the information and you will get 100% every time. And also, if you want to be on the job and if you want a good job performance, because this is something that there's a very famous linguist named Noam Chomsky. I don't know if you're aware of Chomsky, but he's pretty famous linguist. And he said, listen, if you want to be intelligent, you have to be able to interact with other people, okay, in a problem-solving environment. And this is what speech training does. This information is solidified and your memory becomes instantaneous. You can recall this information very easily when you're trying to fix a problem with someone. So this is the one thing I noticed. You have higher intelligence in the language as a result, because, see, the problem with second language education right now is that people are learning grammar and vocabulary. Now, that's great. But if you can't actually apply that information to a problem-solving situation, if you can't actually speak in the language, there's no real learning going on. So basically, all of this language learning, okay, is, kids learn words, but they can't actually apply any of this to their existing environment. Well, then really, you haven't really learned anything. I mean, it's just a waste of time, basically, okay? So this is what the program does. It not only produces confident speaking, but it actually allows people to work very efficiently in a working environment or an educational environment, which is the goal. Because what I want for people is I want them to advance in our society. I want them to become experts. I want them to earn a comfortable wage so that they can, get married and have kids and live happily ever after, basically. Right. So, yeah.
It's funny you should say that, because in here in Australia, I don't know if it's the same over there in Canada, but in Australia, there's two levels, or there's a few levels of education, but one's called like a tertiary education or TAFE course sort of thing, and the other one's like the university sort of level. And the university level one grades people with a pass or credit or a distinction, so much out of 100 in everything they do. Whereas the TAFE modules don't do that. And their example is like an aircraft pilot or something, you're flying a plane, you either fly a plane or you can't. You can't be flying a plane and then, oh, hang on a minute, guys, I got to the landing stage and I failed. So they only have a pass or fail. Either you can do it or you can't do it. And that was their excuse, with what you say, either you can do it or you can't do it. There's no such thing as pass and credit, just whatever it is. That's funny.
Well, this program has major implications for native speakers too, because what we're finding out now is that kids are going to university, they're writing all these exams, they're getting great exam marks, they're going into postgraduate studies, getting their PhD, and they come out and suddenly we find out they can't actually interact on a job site with people. They don't actually know how to speak about these things, and this is a terrible problem. We're not producing kids to be able to go into a working environment and interact with other people. And of course, when you're the weak link in a chain, if you can't speak confidently about all of the operational aspects of the job, you will be isolated and, fired. Okay, which is, that's not a good outcome. And I mean, there are plenty of very supposedly intelligent people, but they're walking the streets because, they can't communicate. And this is a huge problem in the native language as well. So this program not only works well for second language speakers, it works very well in your native language. I mean, for example, I speak much better in English as a result. And of course, as you know, people speak passively most of the time in our language, okay? I mean, there's no real intelligence. I mean, when you're with your family and everything, there's no real intelligence. You're just bantering back, kind of thing, Yeah. But on the job site, it's different. You have to be 100%. You can't make mistakes. And this is what I say to people is, listen, you don't have to speak intelligently about everything, just the stuff at the job, okay? So basically you want to speech train with all the informational updates that you get at work, for example. And this is going to make you, wow, this is going to make you the go-to person at work when someone has a problem. And that's how people get promoted. That's how they move up, you know. When they fix problems for other people on the job, that's when the administration goes, oh, this guy is good. Yes. Okay. And that's what I want for people, basically. But again, the problem is we're not, I mean, educators are not concentrating on speaking, basically, right? This is not a priority for them, which is a terrible thing, because basically that's not going to lead to a good outcome. Okay, I want a good outcome, and speaking is the most important thing on the minds of everybody in our society. So,
and like you said, it's not just speaking though; it's like interacting. It's like the whole thing of it, isn't it? It's not just about words, or it's not about this about the mannerisms and being able to pick up emotions and all the other little subtle things that you do on everyday talking, you know?
Well, it's very interesting, because when you start looking at speaking and for example, I'm always criticizing myself, how can I deliver the message? And let me tell you, you know, all of this research that I did, that was the easy part. Okay, delivering the message, yeah, I'm learning a lot of stuff. Okay, now one thing that I've learned is that in order to have a really good outcome when you're talking to people, you have to treat every conversation like a learning experience. If you do that, you're never going to have any conflict with anybody. Okay, and that's really cool. And that's something that I learned, and I think that's something that most people overlook when they're talking to people. You know, there are a lot of gotcha moments for people. They're like, yeah, I showed him, you know, like kind of thing. No, you know what? Look, people make mistakes, you know. You want to help people when you're in conversation. You don't want to hurt them, you know. So this is one of the things. The other thing that I tell people all the time is, listen, if you want to speak intelligently about anything, you check the emotion at the door, okay? You don't want any emotion. Now, a lot of people say, yes, but you need to be passionate, you know, and everything and blah, blah, blah. But you know what, really? Yes, you can be passionate. Just act like you're passionate, okay? Don't actually be passionate in your mind, okay? In your mind, because emotion crashes logic, okay? I mean, you've probably seen people when they're angry, when they're trying to speak. Oh, that's not a good outcome.
We've all been there, haven't we? Especially with email, even when we're writing, not just even with words, but you never ever send the email when you're cranky. Just wait till the next morning, sleep it, and come, oh shit, well, I didn't send that or whatever. But when you're talking it, there's no, what comes out of your mouth, it stays out of your mouth. You can't unsend it, you know?
Although, see, now, this is the one thing about camera training that's really great. Because the camera doesn't just show you pronunciation problems. It shows you problems with redundancy. Maybe you're overemphasizing points, you know. I mean, sometimes you think you got to drive that point home, you know, and I mean, there are all kinds of problems that it shows you. And of course, it also shows you like, hey, you know, like, what are you, a narcissist here? You know, like, I mean, you know, the way you're coming across just does not resonate with people. And
I'll tell you what, with mine, when I first started this, it was I used to always say all the time, you know, and that was just something, just needed to pause to think and get my thoughts. But I needed to verbalize that, because, yeah, and that's something that I've worked on and still do, but just constantly working on little mannerisms like that, you know.
You never said a true word, of course, and you don't think about it until you see yourself on camera. You're like, whoa,
right.
We have to fix that.
Yeah.
So the camera is the most underestimated and underutilized tool in education. And the reason it's underestimated and underutilized is because educators are concentrating on where they can make money in a classroom. Okay? So basically my attitude is, listen, we have to give people the right tools and training in education. Even if it's happening outside of the classroom. Look, if you're a teacher, you want the best for your students, right? And teachers have to admit that, yes, that's true, okay? But the problem is, however, is that when you give people these tools, they suddenly realize that they don't need the teacher anymore, okay?
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, this is why we have educational unions, okay? Because these people are like, hey, we're losing power here, you know? Like, yes, and of course, I firmly believe that this is why education has changed so much. We're starting to indoctrinate students in, you know, Marxist ideas and all of this woke stuff instead of actually concentrating on producing people that can work and make a good living in our society. I mean, basically, my attitude is, listen, I'm not actually terribly concerned about anyone going to university or anything like that. You can do it if you want. The goal for me is to make people into people that can, for example, fix problems in their community, for example, okay? They can become community leaders. You know, there are lots of things happening in the community. We have all kinds of infrastructure problems, you know, just
social problems,
plethora of problems, okay? That, you know, we need people to come together, talk about it, fix it in a nice, easy, relaxing manner. You know, get along, and this is
trauma free and emotional free, and sit down and talk about the facts and different perspectives. And
you know, the cool thing about you know, confident speaking is that, for example, generally most confident speakers, for example, they sleep well at night. They, you know, because we have a lot of regret about things that we say. I mean, this is the one thing. If you talk to the mental health guys, they're always like, yeah, it's always something you said to somebody, or, you know, the way that you handle a presentation or something, you know. So we want to eliminate that. But I love speaking to people because I love getting their perspective on things. Like I said, treat it like a learning experience.
Yeah.
For example, in Colombia, I'm going back to Colombia again, and it's going to be an even better experience because my Spanish is so much better now, and it just makes you a better person, you know. So, but this program, like I said, it's free of charge, no anxiety, and especially for kids, parents are going to have to start taking control of these language programs. Because we can't have kids going through this anxiety, and then in the end they just stop the program, so they're not going to become bilingual. And I don't care what anybody says. If you can speak another language, it's just another point of view. You just see things completely differently. And like, for example, I learned how Colombians live, and a lot of things that I really like about things, but you don't have to like everything. You just take the things you like, you put it in your pocket, and you go home and you do those things. That's a pretty good outcome, right?
But also too is, like you say, with different perspectives, but understanding different cultures and different languages and reasons, because a lot of these languages, a lot of these things that you say to people are based on probably hundreds of years of history, or through, you know, culture that's been raised up somewhere, and there's reasons behind it. And when you're learning these secondary languages, or when you're learning these things, then you're picking up on some of these cultural aspects of the language, and that does help you create a better understanding of people when you're communicating. Did you find that? Or yeah,
so true. Yes, absolutely, yeah. So basically, like I said, the problem, however, is that I'm up against, you know, people like Cambridge, you know, who are, I mean, these people have enormous power, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, you know. So I don't know. I'm making a lot of progress, though. I mean, people are listening, you know. But you know, once you get into an educational setting where you think, well, I need to go to a classroom, you know. I mean, this is just something it's just a way of life, you know. One thing that I will say is there's a lot more homeschooling going on in North America these days. I don't know how it's going in Australia.
Yeah. Same trends in Australia as well, especially since COVID as well. It's a lot of distrust, and a lot of these institutions are losing a lot of their trust, I suppose, and a lot of people are getting sick of their kids being a doctorate or whatever into these, like you say, woke things or whatever. So there's a fair bit of that going on here as well. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. The main thing is that I mean, my goal is to make sure that people are successful and prosperous. You know, a lot of people ask me, why is your program free? And I think it's got something to do with the fact that I put a lot of people through a lot of high anxiety when I was teaching them.
How am I getting back?
It could be a guilt thing, okay? You know, it's ever, I don't know, but
so how are you monetizing it? Just through YouTube, or just through subscriptions on YouTube, or advertising.
Basically, I want to change the education system. That's my goal. Okay. So, basically I want to go around to, and I think for corporations, the biggest problem in corporations right now is communication. So basically, if I can get, all of these people to, speech train with this information at home regarding all this stuff that they're doing in the company, you're going to have a lot better performance. And this is basically the goal. We'll see how it goes, but again,
it's a good idea, isn't it? Because that's something that I believe in as well. Is if you go to where people work, then it creates that atmosphere where it sort of forces people to become better at what they do, because it's in their paid time. So when you're at work, you tell someone to do something, and they're likely to do it because they're at work earning it. But also it creates better outcomes for the business as well. So I feel that targeting, like you say, the corporates to invest in their employees to become the best version of themselves is a win-win for everybody. I don't see there any losses there, so I think that's a great philosophy.
Sure. But again, for example, I don't know how it happened in education that we just, got onto this learning approach without actually concentrating on speaking. I feel strongly that educators know that, what they're doing is not exactly kosher 100%, So, for me, it's, like I said, I feel very good about what I'm doing because I want to produce people that can speak confidently, and I think that's the best outcome. The problem is we've created this industry now, which employs, hundreds of thousands of people. How do you turn that around? So this is the problem. Well, for example, I was an English teacher. I decided, no, I can't do that anymore. I just not. And I know a lot of teachers that are telling me, listen, I did not sign up for this. I just, there's something wrong with this. They all know. They all know something's wrong. But they went to university, and they feel like maybe they can't change in midlife. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a difficult situation for sure. Okay, but the one thing that I will tell you is that, for example, I'm on LinkedIn, and I've joined a lot of education groups. Well, I'm saying all this stuff, and I haven't heard a whisper of or anything like that. Okay, they're like like that.
I often wonder whether there's even anybody out there on that answers to that type, whatever you're wanting.
It's a pretty delicate situation. For example, I was in Saudi Arabia, and I would tell the Saudis all this stuff, and they would go, that's yes, but then they would go, but we got these guys from England here, and they're telling us to do all this stuff, so yes.
Well, yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for telling us a bit about your program and a bit about what you do, and you can see the passion in your voice, and it's good now. I know the first time we talked, we had a few sound issues or whatever with the internet. It's sounding good now, and I think overall that we should get some people to have a look at your program and see if we can get some people confidently talking.
Camera training, confident English speaking. Okay, it's on YouTube and LinkedIn, and like I said, available in English and Spanish. If people want to ask questions, they can always comment on my videos, and I'm very happy to respond. I like criticism. Okay, no problem with that. That's how we fix problems. So I'll be very happy to deal with any of that. There's no problem. But so far, I've had a lot of very good responses. People are actually quite pleased with what I've been doing. I offer a lot of comments on LinkedIn to other people about their stuff, and they're like, "Wow, that's actually a good perspective." So I just actually joined a new group called the Education Blueprint. These are supposedly these guys. how can I say it, the visionaries, okay? And they sent me an invitation, and they saw my stuff, and they said, you know what, I think we should look at this, So, yes, I'm definitely making progress, but like I said, Trevor, I sleep very well at night. I don't have any problems that way. I think in this thing, just a question of time, that's all.
Yeah. No, that's great. And that's something I'll certainly have a look at. Spanish, I really think about Spanish for quite some time, actually. I've had a look at that a few times now, one of them things. But yeah, like you say, it's just getting into it or having a program you can do. So I'll certainly have a look at it. But, and yeah, so you're mainly on YouTube, but you are on LinkedIn as well. If someone wants to send you a message, LinkedIn, quite easy to comment. So when we get this episode published, I'll put some links on the comments there on LinkedIn anyway, and go from there. So I thank you very much for joining us, and thanks very much for telling us about what you do and all your passion, and hopefully don't be a stranger, keep in touch, and we'll see you again in a few months.
My pleasure, Trevor. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. Bye.